Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool Transfer Show on Football Tour Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. No major bombers like last night in regards to Isak's statement on social media, but we can still discuss the matter to some extent as there was a statement from Newcastle that appeared after the show last night, so we'll speak on that. Plus, there's been other rumours that have been circulating and there's been a big bomber in regards to the Premier League. So we'll speak about that shortly as well. So let's start with no other players other than Alexander Isak. Now, Newcastle released a statement after the show last night in response to Isak's social media post. So what I'll do is I'll present the statement and I'll read it out, and then we can discuss, what we think of it, and we'll go from there. So let me present the statement. So this was tweeted by Romano for word. So quote unquote, Newcastle said, "We are disappointed to have been alerted to a social media post by Alexander Isak this evening. We are clear in response that Alex remains under contract and that no commitment has ever been made by a club official that Alex can leave Newcastle United this summer. We want to keep our best players, but we also understand players have their own wishes and we listen to their views. As explained to Alex and his representatives, we must always take into consideration the best interests of Newcastle United, the team, and our supporters in all decisions, and we have been clear that the conditions of a sale this summer has not transpired. We do not foresee those conditions being met. This is a proud football club with proud traditions, and we strive to retain our family feel. Alex remains part of our family and will be welcomed back when he is ready to rejoin his teammates." So, my initial thoughts after reading that statement, a couple of thoughts came to mind. So, first, they're basically calling Isak a liar in terms of what he presented on his social media post. And number two, they haven't really dismissed the idea of selling him, as they've said, they don't foresee those conditions being met. So they're thinking, Liverpool won't come in with a bid. I would beg to differ. I think Liverpool will place an offer that will, in the end, be too good to turn down. And that's when Newcastle will want to talk business. So clearly, they're trying to get the most out of the situation, and they're not going to hold themselves accountable for his behavior because he's pretty much said that promises have been broken. They're suggesting that's nothing to the nature in terms of that never happened, that never transpired. So because of that, there's clearly a broken relationship there, and I don't see Isak staying at the club anytime soon. Despite the statement saying that he'll be welcomed back by his teammates. His teammates will be fine because obviously it's football and they're probably good friends with Isak. But Newcastle fans, I don't think they want him anywhere near the club. I saw a clip earlier today where he drove to training today and he was getting chased by fans who were screaming that he's a rat and saying all sorts of rude words towards him. So for me, this is something where a solution has to be done. I feel like for Isak, it's so far gone in terms of his stance where he's pretty much refused to train, he's refused to report for preseason duty, he's at his ex club to train over there, he's come back and he's pretty much not trained with the full team, he's pretty much been on his own or has been told to train on his own. So looks like there's no coming back with this sort of angle from Isak. And with regards to Newcastle, I think they've just played it wrong. They really have. They've clearly have made false promises for the player, and they didn't expect him to react in the way he did. So that's something that's kind of backfired on them. And let's be honest, they've been trying to find replacements for Isak, but unfortunately, they've just not been able to get any deals over the line. So let's see what happens. I think we will get some sort of developments in the next few days. The latest rumor that we're getting from a Liverpool's point of view is that we have sanctioned a British record of 130 million pounds to move for Isak next week. So the current rumor is that we won't approach Newcastle until after the Premier League clash on Monday, and Liverpool are confident that a deal will be done afterwards. Now, My thoughts on that, I feel like there is some truth to that, to be fair. Of course, it does make logical sense to do that. I think now, from now until Monday, there will be discussions with the clubs and they'll try and do it in a civil manner so relationships aren't broken. But I feel like we'll get some sort of announcement or some sort of development, I say next week at some point, possibly on a Wednesday. I think mid next week is when we'll get some sort of development that Liverpool have made an official bid, and it should be enough to get the deal over the line because, quite frankly, we don't have too much time. Today's the 20th, next Wednesday will be the 27th, and the window closes on the 1st. So, not a lot of time, but I'm hoping that in the meantime, with the rest of the week upon us, I think this will be the time where both clubs will be having private meetings, private discussions, and next week it will be made public. So that's what I'm envisioning right now. So let's see what happens. But in terms of Alexander Isak, my stance is quite clear. You know, free Isak. Let him live. The poor guy is homeless right now. So let us, let him get his wish, and that is to move to Liverpool. So hopefully, he gets his dream in the end. We'll have to wait and see. Uh, just got a couple of comments before we move on. AR says, Big Aussie and chat, Assalamu alaikum, smash the like and subscribe. You'll never walk alone. Welcome some to AR. I hope you're well. Thank you for tuning in. AR saying, any link up to come on? Link up is that in reference to uh, people coming up on the show? I do have a match preview tomorrow, so it will be of course, Newcastle versus Liverpool, the big game, the highly anticipated game next week, and I should have a guest or two that come on tomorrow. So yeah, make sure to be on the lookout for that. Just got a comment here from Chumoke. Big up yourself. He says, "What is Liverpool doing? We sold Diaz and no replacement. Sold Nunez and no replacement. Arsenal and Chelsea has a lot of attacking options. We are short in attack and defense. This is so bad. I understand in terms of your frustration and the current situation at the club, but we've still got some time to rectify. I feel like there have been talks with potentially signing a new defender in Mark Gahey. I think Isak is something that is on the cards as well. So, once those deals are concluded, then I feel like it paints the the bigger picture for us where we have a more complete squad, in my opinion. I would still like us to get another attacker. I think a left winger or someone that can play left wing and right wing makes the most sense. But I don't know if Liverpool will have enough time to get that sort of deal over the line because we've got Mark Gay and Isak as priority signings right now. So it'll be very difficult to get that third player. But you never know. We still have about 11 days. So once the window closes, then I feel like we can give our real thoughts and frustrations, if that is how it ends up happening, regarding the window. Because if Isak or Gay or no one else comes through the door, then we have left us very short, in my opinion. So yeah, I don't think. I think we just have to be patient right now. We can't be too reactionary. The club are doing work in the background, so hopefully we'll get some announcements in the near future. Any link to come up here right now? No, I'm not doing a call-in show today. But I will be doing a call-in show next week. So we'll have a match reaction show after the Newcastle game. So feel free to join in and have your say on the match. But of course, if you want to talk about transfers, you're more than welcome to do so. But I have also promised after the window closes, I will be doing a dedicated transfer show where it is a call-in show. So anyone that wants to call in and express their views about the window, because we'll have more clarification once the window closes, then everyone is more than welcome to come on and have their say. So yeah, that's one show to look out for. Philip says, big up Aussie, big up Philip. I hope you're well. Chibuka says, Mark Gay and Isak not enough. Our attack is so short. We have just Salah, Ekatike, Gakpo, Kiers, and if we get Isak, it makes it 5. Salah goes to AFCON, it makes it 4 times. It makes it 4 injuries. I agree. I don't think you're wrong there. I do feel like a third signing would make the most sense, having a versatile forward, and it doesn't have to be a big name or high profile. For me, it needs to be someone that's versatile that can provide cover for left wing and right wing, someone that's dynamic, someone that can take on the fullback, because I think that's something we lack in our team now since the departure of Diaz. So I feel like that's the right profile for us to go. Whether we add that type of player, only time will tell. We've not been linked with many names, so that would indicate we're not. But you never know. Liverpool are one of those clubs that like to pull the rabbit out of the hat on occasions. So maybe that will happen before the close of the window. Um, AR said we need squad depth. 100%. We do need squad depth. And in terms of, Chibuke mentioning that we've got 5 attackers, I think we have enough players in our squad to cover for Salah when he goes to AFCON. So for me, you know, when he goes to AFCON, I think Frimpong could be utilized as a right winger. You've got the likes of Chiesa that can play that role. Szoboszlai, if required. I know that's not his prime position, but I have seen him play there for Red Bull Leipzig in the past, so he could occupy that role. Uh, who else could go there? But Gakpo's not been great there. I've not liked him whenever he's played on the right side. So those will be, the right wing options there. But of course, if you were to sign like a Fofana or someone like that, then I feel like it gives you a bit more peace of mind. And I think in terms of it being 5 attack, I think if that is what we end up with in the end, I think Rio will be our 6th attacker. Of course, he's a very young boy, so for him, it's too much pressure for him to play, week in week out or play multiple games in that manner. But I do believe that he has the potential to cause some sort of havoc. Whether it's in cup games or Premier League games here and there, I do feel like it would be warranted if he's you know progressing very well and he's actually performing surpassed expectations for the under 23s. So that's something we've got to keep that in mind. But I do believe that we need more squad depth. Hopefully, the club can rectify that before the close of the window. AI says Nkuku for £43 million, 27-year-old. In terms of age is not, I don't think age is an issue with regards to Nkuku. My concern would be his injury record. His injury record is really, really bad. And funny enough, a few years ago, we were actually very close to signing. We were in talks to sign him. And in the end, we decided to go for Darwin Nunes instead of Nkuku. So, you know, maybe that was a mistake or who knows, because of course Nkuku has been very much injury prone in the last 3 years. So if he was a Liverpool player and he kept on getting injured, then that wouldn't help our situation. But I think for 43 million, it's not the worst case scenario, if I'm being honest, because I know the player is of good quality. My concern would be availability. Is he, fit enough to play a number of games? He'll provide, good cover for Ekitike. I'm going on the basis that you think Isak's not coming, because if he comes in, then the only role that he would play is a striker or could play as a number 10, but I don't think we need that kind of profile anymore in our team. He can play left wing, but I think he's not effective in that role. I think for Chelsea, he's been placed on the left wing because they need to try and fit him in somehow. They always had Nicholas Jackson through the middle because he was the chaotic striker. He would be the one that's aggressive with his running and playing on the shoulder, whereas Nkuku is more creative and doesn't really pose that kind of presence up top. So that's why they've had to put him on the left wing to, you know, accommodate his position in the team. So for me, I wouldn't go for Nkuku. I don't think that's a deal that makes any sense. Tribuki says Chelsea will soon hijack Gay because of 5 million. We are wasting time with Gay, who worth 70 million on a normal perspective. This is so bad. We need a winger that can play left and right. I agree. We do need a winger that can play left and right. There's nothing to suggest that uh, Chelsea will hijack that deal. Why would they hijack that deal? I know Levi Cole was injured and probably out for most parts of the season, but they've got about 10 defenders. So I don't think they'll come in for the player. And from what we've heard, it seems to be that Liverpool is his first choice. That's the club that he wants to join. He doesn't want to join Chelsea because that's his former club. And I don't think, it's a move that would interest him at this stage. But I can't say that with clarity because, of course, I'm not an agent. I'm not in behind the scenes. But from what we're hearing through the media, that's not what it seems to appear. So 5 million is not the difference in valuation. It's actually a bit more than that. I think we valued him at 30. They want about 40, 45. I think we'll come to a compromise. I think it will be a 35 plus add-ons that equals to 40 million. So I think we'll end up gaining for 42 million in the end. But they are currently in discussions right now. That's the rumor that they are in talks. So we'll just have to wait and see what the conclusions are. Of course, they have been busy. They've been trying to, you know, finalize another deal, which probably came out of the blue for them. But so they have been busy. Hopefully, once that deal is confirmed, I'm referring to the Eze deal, which we'll speak about shortly as well. That they can move on and try and help us out and get Gehi through the line as well. Chibuki says Frimpong will not give us what a good winger will give us. We need a proper winger. I disagree. I think Frimpong on the right wing is someone that would be very effective. I've seen him play right wing for the Netherlands. I've seen him play there for Bayer Leverkusen, and he's very effective. I actually did a watch along. I think it was about a few months ago where he was playing for the Netherlands and they faced Spain because we were heavily linked to him. So I thought, let me do a Liverpool scout watch because there was a lot of players within that match that was linked to Liverpool and he caused havoc. He had about 2, 3 men on him all the time, and he got past him easy. Cucurella had a nightmare in that game. So for me, as a right winger, he might not be a Mo Salah where he's going to score goals from the right wing, but what he will do is provide width and pace on that flank and great delivery from his crossing that will help facilitate, you know, crosses for Ekitike and hopefully Isak as well. So he's a different type of right winger, probably more of an orthodox right winger, but he still is impactful on that side of the pitch. So he might not be a like for like Salah replacement in that regards, but will be an effective right winger, in my opinion. Chibuga says Liverpool should get Semenyo or Rafael Leao. These guys can play right, left, or center. Honestly, I don't see this Isak deal working. I have my doubt it won't happen this window. Do you see this deal not happening, or you don't see it working? Because if we get Isak, are you suggesting that it won't work? Because I'll have to disagree with you on that as well. I think Isak is the dream signing. He's clearly for me one of the best strikers in the world. So for me, it will definitely work. And people have said, would Ekitike Isak work? I think it can work, and that might be the reason why we're not going for a left winger because I think Ekitike will be playing on the left side. But what will happen during the games, and this happened a lot last season with Gakpo and Diaz, both players will be interchanging, and I feel like that's what's going to present that unpredictable element of our attack, where one of those players will be on up front, and all of a sudden they've switched roles, and they're both very comfortable attacking from the left. I wouldn't say they are left wingers, but they're very comfortable from attacking from that left channel. So for me, it would make great sense to have those type of players on the cards together. But also, Isak can be the striker, and Ekitike, if we need to have him on the bench, that's also an option as well. So it will depend on who we're playing and who we're facing, and what kind of tactics we have on the horizon. So it will depend in terms of how that fits. But in terms of the two names you mentioned, Semenyo. Yeah, Semenyo's a good player. I do rate him, but he signed a new contract, so he'd be worth a lot more money than planned. He was valued at 60 million before that contract was signed, so they'll want possibly close to 80, 90 million. I don't think he's worth that price, if I'm being honest with you. Rafael Leao, I'm a big fan of his. I've said it quite a few times on the show. I don't think he's a realistic target anymore. He's got a new coach in Allegri, and he's pretty much told him that he's the main man. So that's already giving him that boost, that confidence, and he showed it against us in preseason. So for me, he's pretty much happy and content to be at AC Milan for at least one more season. Chibuki says, honestly, Arsenal agreeing a deal for Eze has put Arsenal favourite for the league. Honestly, they have really strengthened. I do agree with you. It's a signing that kind of came out of nowhere, but at the same time, I'm not hugely surprised because I know Eze is an Arsenal fan. He came through the ranks there in his younger days as well. Tottenham thought they were going to sign him, but it looks like they've been hijacked again and they've lost their marbles, especially some of the fans online. So we'll see what happens. We'll do a prediction show just after the window closes, and then I'll assess each squad and then give you my take. I'll give you my predictions of the league table as well. Tribuki says Crystal Palace want 40 million and we submit a total package of 35. From what I heard, it was 30. So it was a 30 deal. It wasn't deal. I don't think it was. I think it included add-ons as well. Um, but even if that is the case, I think we're still in negotiations. We haven't walked away from the table. Uh, there is a still strong possibility that we get this deal over the line because their chairman in Simon Parish, he's pretty much voiced it out that he wants a deal done now. It makes no sense for him to leave on a free. And with Eze going for about 60 million, if they can get 40 million for Gay, that's 100 million that they've recouped, and that could be enough funds for them to really facilitate new additions to their squad. So I believe we will get Mark Gay. We'll have to be a little bit patient, I think, but he will be a Liverpool player at the end of the window, and that's the feelings I get right now. Only time will tell. Chibuka says Slot doesn't trust young players like the way Klopp trusts and plays young players, but Slot doesn't play and improve young players. That's why he's selling all of them. I wouldn't agree with that. I think with Arne Slot, I definitely feel that he favors young players. Of course, if you're comparing it to Klopp, it's a different discussion because in Klopp's last season, we pretty much had no choice but to field a lot of our youngsters because we had so many injury issues. So that was a position where he was reluctant to do that, if that makes sense. So I think Slot, he seems like the coach where I think he will give youngsters a chance. If you go back to his final days, he gave a lot of young players a chance to play in that team. Of course, different situations where the magnitude of him winning the title final wasn't as high in comparison to Liverpool. But I do feel like he's a coach that has faith in the young players, and if they're good enough, that he will add them to the squad. So for me, I don't think that is quite the case. Um, but we'll see. He's already placed Rio in preseason, which wasn't the plan. I think they wanted him to be part of the squad, but he pretty much did every preseason game. So there's clearly, some belief and faith in the young player there. So for me, that's an indication that he is willing to blood those youngsters that he thinks are good enough. And even Conor Bradley, 21 years age. I know 21 seems old, but he was brought in to play a lot of games last season. We've signed Kirkes, he's 21 years of age as well. So I know they're not teenagers, but not everyone has a Lamine Yamal running around in their squad. You have to facilitate to the what players you have. And I think Rio is one of our teenagers that looks like could be a huge player for years to come. And I think he will get some game time. Trey Nyoni was around the team last season, played in a lot of the cup games. So there's definitely faith in certain players, but I don't think it's right to just embed all these young players for the sake of it. If they're good enough, they will be part of the team. If they're not, they'll have to buy their time. They have the room or the area to learn the trade. They have the time to refine their skill set by playing for the under 23s or playing even at a younger age group for the under 19s or under 18s. So, we have to respect the club's way of doing things and how they want to facilitate the young players into the first team. I'm in no rush to blood the young players in our squad. We have a very talented squad right now. So for me, that's not something that's high on my agenda. But Liverpool, if you look at our record, we're one of those teams that give our youngsters a chance, and that's why we're able to sign the likes of Rio. We've just signed Woodman. Uh, not Woodman, sorry, he's an old goalkeeper. What's his name? Hughes, the striker that we signed. So these are players that can definitely have a huge impression in our team in the future. So yeah, only time will tell. When they are ready to play in the first team. The next comment here from Jimmy says, Ozzy, do you think we will sign Isak after Newcastle statement? Just be honest. I think we will. My stance is quite clear. I think we will. That statement did not sound dismissive that he's not for sale. That's not what they could have said that, the player is not for sale. They didn't say that. They basically said along the lines that what was it exactly? They said something along the lines of that they don't think those conditions are being met. So that means that they have a valuation and Liverpool haven't tabled an offer. But that's because we're being respectful, where we're waiting for the door to open for us to walk through and place that bid on the table. So we're just waiting for that clearance to, talk business. And I think we will have that, at some point in the next few days, and we'll get some official news, I believe, next week. So I still believe that Isak will be a free man and he will be able to join Liverpool before the window closes, which is pretty much next week. AR says, do we need a CDM? I think we do. We 100% we do. I'm not going to be like, no, our midfield is perfect. I would definitely say we do, but I don't think that's high on the agenda. I think they've already got players, you know, earmarked to join next summer. I think if I was, to pluck a name out there in terms of who I would like as a CDM, it'd actually be Wharton from Crystal Palace. So we can't be too green and say Gay and Wharton with them, having only a week left. And they've lost Eze as well. So for me, it is a position I think we do need to strengthen, but we have enough for me to go on a charge this season. We have plenty of midfield options. We have the likes of McAllister, Gravenberch, Sobozlai is an option for that double pivot role. We've got Endo, Jones, Bajtic, who's injured right now, but he could be a useful option for us during the season. You've still got McConnell on the in the squad as well. So that's seven options there just for the double pivot position. So for me, I think we have enough numbers to go through this season. But I think next summer, maybe we will have to uh, replace Endo, and where he will possibly leave the club, and we upgrade on him and sign a player like a Wharton who comes in and provides cover and challenges for that double pivot role. So that's the way I'm envisioning it. So let's see what happens next summer. But till then, we'll speak about the current rumors. And I brought this player up, which is slightly random, but just hear me out. So what I've heard today is that Julián Álvarez's entourage believe that the player has made a mistake by signing for Atletico Madrid. So does that mean he's available for transfer? And also, if Liverpool aren't able to get Isak through the door, could they target Julián Álvarez as an alternative option? I don't know. I don't think they would in this window, but maybe look, I don't want to put negative energy out there because I've been very strong with my stance that I believe that we will sign Isak. But let's say it doesn't happen and Newcastle are adamant that they won't sell him to us, which I don't think is the case. But let's just say that is a scenario. Do Liverpool go for another target? It could be a possibility, but I don't know if Alvarez will be someone that we look at now. Maybe it's someone we look at in January or next summer. But it's an interesting question because throughout the whole summer we've been told that Alvarez is happy, they don't want to sell him, and all of a sudden um, he's unsettled. He's regretting the move to Atletico. So I'm not sure where this has come out. It's kind of come out of the blue, in my opinion. So I don't know if there's any truth to this statement that's been leaked online. Uh, but on paper, if Isak isn't available, then for me, if I had to choose a second choice, it would be Julián Álvarez because I think he ticks all the boxes. He's a potent striker, in my opinion. Can play as a number 10 very effectively and can play on the wing. He's a hard worker. He's great with pressing, great technical ability, decent at set pieces. He can score free kick as well. So for me, he would be a viable alternative to Isak. But for me, I've always wanted Isak. Isak has been my guy for the past year. That's the player I've always wanted at Liverpool. So for me, my stance doesn't change until that is completely dead. For me, Isak is the one and only target for Liverpool Football Club. So let me know in the chat what you think. Would you consider Alvarez as an alternative target? Drop a comment and let me know. Got a couple more comments here from Chibuke. He says the reason why we concede so many counter attacks is because of we don't have a proper DM. Like Fabinho, Groundberg, and McAllister aren't proper CDMs. So I disagree with that to an extent. So I think the last two games we have been conceding a lot of counter attacks because we didn't have that protection for the back line. And that was because of the absence of Gravenberch. For me, Gravenberch last season pretty much helped us in that regards where he was a protector of that back line, even dropped in the back three on occasions as well. So for me, you've got to have a balance in that double pivot. One has to be defensive minded, one has to be a creative player. So Gravenberch McAllister for me is the perfect blend or even Groundberg and Sabozla if McAllister's not available. So for me, Groundberg is the key. to our success this coming season. But if he's not available, what do Liverpool do? Is Endo good enough? I think Endo can play in sporadic games and is one of those players that can come off the bench to close the game for us. But I do think he has limitations if he was to play 5, 10 games in a row, because I feel like he's good from sniffing out the danger and making punching tackles, but I don't think he's good on the half turn in terms of receiving the ball, and I don't think his distribution is at a very high level. So for me, that would be an area of concern. But then you've got players like Jones that can do that sort of shift. I don't think he's defensively mind in terms of his overall play, but I do feel like Jones has technical ability to do a decent job in that DM role. So I do believe we need a CDM. I've never hidden that. I've said that quite a few times during the off season, but I just don't feel like it's our primary target because we have to look at other areas at first, and I think we probably got a target in mind that might not be available right now. So, what Liverpool are like. If they have a target in mind, they will wait and bide their time, and I think that is what is happening right now. And I think you'll see that signing happening next summer. Jabuke says it was Klopp who gave Bradley a chance and not Slot. Slot used him, but Klopp gave him a chance as a young player. Yes, he did, but I feel like he played more games under Slot. But that's my thing there. So, he could have been a player that maybe Slot didn't favor and limited his game time up top. Or should I say, in defense. But I feel like he gave him a lot of game time last year, despite having Trent in the team. Of course, Trent did pick up injuries here and there, but I feel like he really showcased his talent under Arne Slot. So he may not have given him his debut, but he still, utilized the player very well. And I feel like we saw the best of Conor Bradley under Slot rather than Klopp, in my opinion. But that's just how I see it. And I think, you know, Rio will be the evidence that he does like to use young players. That's just how I see it. I don't know in terms of why you think Slot doesn't favor young players. If players are ready to come through the ranks, they will be available for selection. Right now, Liverpool are trying to build a team of high quality players. And don't forget, we have a lot of our players in our squad are very young. They're in their early 20s. So these players are going to play as a collective for years to come. We're trying to build a squad, not just to build a squad full of individuals. We're trying to build a collective here. So for me, I'm liking the way Liverpool are moving right now. You may disagree, but I think they're moving in the right way. Mazzy, big up Mazzy says, Aussie, this Isak situation is getting out of control. How do you think it will end? Mazzy, I still have belief that we will get Isak in the end. It's been dragging on, and honestly, I'm not surprised that it is just because of the magnitude of the transfer and Newcastle trying to play hardball. I'll be honest with you, if Newcastle were able to find the Isak replacement through a Sesko signing or someone along that sort of ilk, then this deal would have happened a lot earlier than scheduled, in my opinion. Because they can't attract players right now, they're struggling to find adequate quality to add to their squad, and that's what's delaying our process here. So I still believe it will happen. It's frustrating. I get it. I feel like I speak about Isak every day, even if there isn't a huge development, I still have to speak about him in some shape or form. I'm confident that we will get him. 11 days to go. So once the window closes, we'll see what happens. I believe he will be a Liverpool player, and I think he will be our number 9 by the end of this window. Chibuka says, Aussie between McAllister, Sabona, Granberg, Jones, and Verts. What is your midfield three? Good question, Chibuke. I think it will still be Gravenberg, McAllister, and Verts. I know some fans will probably throw Szoboszlai in there because they've not been too overly pleased with Verts, but it's early day, guys. He's only had 1 or 2 games, in a competitive manner. Verts is one of the best number 10s in the world. I don't know how to, alliterate that so much. He's one of the best in his roles. So for me, it's Verts as your number 10, and the familiarity or the great combination of Gravenberg and McAllister for me has to be the first choice on paper. Of course, you'll have to assess the squad, and I think Szoboszlai will get a lot of game time there for both roles. I think as in a double pivot and in that sort of number 10 role, I think Szoboszlai will be utilized quite a bit. And I think, he has to be. He's a very important and integral part of our squad. But my first choice would be McAllister, Gravenberg, and Florian Wirtz. Mazzy says, Aussie, it seems that Newcastle only sell for around 140 million plus. Getting a top striker with only 12 days left is going to be touch and go. It is going to be touch and go. I believe that they are having private discussions right now, and I think they're trying to understand what the valuation, what the real valuation is, not what you hear in the media. Like, what do they actually want? And I think we'll be placing a bid close enough to that figure. I don't think it's going to go upwards of 140 or 150. I think the deal will be around 130, 120 to 130. That's the range I think will happen in the end. Um, Only time will tell, if that is the final price. But I'll be honest with you guys, maybe I'm being a bit cheeky here, but I just want Isak through the door. Whether it's 120, 130, 140, 150, I could not care less now. I want Liverpool to just go on and do what they have to do and get Isak to Anfield because it's just gone for so long now. It's been dragging all summer. I want us to sign the man that we believe will take us to success this season. So get him over the line. It's not our money. So for me, I feel like Liverpool just need to do what they can to get Isak through the door, but also get Mark Gay. I feel like that will solidify our defense even further. And it's good to see that we've signed Lione, who I didn't expect us to go for, if I'm being honest with you. So I'm pleased that Liverpool have tried to find a successor to Van Dijk so early on. Um, but yeah, I do believe we'll get Mark Gay and I do believe we'll get Isak. That's the two signings that I'm expecting us to make before the window. I would love for us to get a third attacker. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but let's see. Nick says, "Big up, what's going on? Big up yourself, Nick. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in." Stuart says, "Good evening, sir. Big up yourself, Stuart. So I hope you're doing well as well." Man says, "Aussie, any news on Mark Gay? No further developments today. But in terms of Mark Gay, I think the clubs are in current discussions to finalize the deal, and I wouldn't be surprised if we hear something by the end of this week. I think the focus is to try and get a deal for Isak, but because with the valuation not being too far off, between 5 to 10 million, I'm not sure exactly what the figure is, but I think that should be enough to solidify that deal because Gay has made it very clear he wants to join Liverpool, and that's the only club that he's looking forward to. So for me, that should be an easier process to get that deal done. So hopefully, we'll hear some news later this week. And if I was to make a prediction, I think we will by the end of this week. We'll hear some sort of developments. Uh, Mazzy says, "What's your reaction on Arsenal getting Eze? Everyone thought Tottenham will get him, but he went to them. Let's talk about him. Right on cue there in terms of my next topic. And yes, that is the big transfer in the Premier League tonight. Palace have agreed, or should I say, Palace have accepted a deal worth £60 million from Arsenal for Eze. Eze actually had a release clause of 68 million last week, which expired. So Arsenal did what they thought was best and tried to offer close to that range. And now it looks like they're finalizing contract terms with Eze, with the player very, very keen on joining. Not surprised by that because Eze is an Arsenal fan, from what I know, and it's a club he came through the youth ranks as well. So no, who's surprised there. But you're right, Mazzy. I did think that he was on the verge of signing for Tottenham, as I think many of us did. So Tottenham fans are absolutely distraught today, annoyed and everything above because they haven't got their man. He would have been the player that really helps Tottenham go up to another level. I think that's the kind of impact Eze would have had because he can play left wing, number 10, but not just, his versatility. He's very effective on the ball. He's got great end product. That was his question marks over the years when he first joined Crystal Palace. Is he able to, elevate his game? Is he able to produce end product? He has done. He's been doing it for a long time, in my opinion, and I've been his fan for a number of years. So for me, it's a great signing for Arsenal. It really is. And look, it puts them in a very strong position. You can't, you know, disregard Arsenal's recruitment. They've recruited some good players. Of course, they've got the likes of Zubamendi, Gyökeres. They've got Madueke. They've also got Eze on the verge of signing now. So they've signed real quality players. The funny thing about Arsenal signing all of these players, that apparently Liverpool were ruining football with all these big signings, but Arsenal spent more money than us. So make it make sense in that regards. Um, but yeah, I think it's a great signing. It's definitely going to change the scope of the title race, in my opinion. Uh, I might go as far as to say that Arsenal, in my eyes, have moved from third to second. I still think Liverpool are going to be number one, but I think Arsenal could be our nearest challengers now, just because of this Eze signing. Um, so yeah, it's definitely where I'm not sort of scared or shook in any shape or form, but it's an interesting one. I do feel like they've really strengthened here, and it's going to be interesting to see how their team is presented in the coming weeks, but also for the rest of the season. So it's just made the title race a little bit more exciting now, which is great for the neutral fan. Uh, Rajiv, big up yourself. He says, if we don't get Isak, would you take Rodrigo or Barcola and come back for Isak in January? Good question. I'd probably say yes, if I'm being honest with you. If I have to be a realist, just because I think it's going to happen doesn't mean it will happen. But if we don't end up getting Isak now, I think we'll wait for Isak and try and get him in January. But for now, we still need another attacker at least in the squad. So for me, a Rodrigo or Barcola would make a lot of sense. For me, it has to be Barcola. That's the guy I want. Imagine Barcola on the left, Ekitike through the middle, and then Salah on the right. For me, that's plenty of quality there. And in terms of Ekitike's cover, Chiesa can do that, backup striker role for the next few months until we get Isak. And you've still got the likes of Gakpo, Verts, Sobozlai, and Frimpong if you need to play him on the right wing, on emergency. Rio's still there as well. So for me, that would be, enough quality for us to, really go for a charge for the Premier League and for the Champions League when it starts in September. So yeah, I would go for that option, and I would still go for Isak in January. I don't think Isak is out of the door if we don't get that deal over the line, but I believe we will sign him in the end. So yeah, fingers crossed we make that happen in the next week. Rajiv said, which statement do you think looks the most genuine, Isak or Newcastle? I feel like the Isak one is more genuine, not just because I want him as well. When a player goes public about their situation like that, they've held it on to a certain level where they had to let it out, they had to speak about it. Newcastle was in response to that to try and calm the storm, if that makes sense. So whatever Isak said for me wasn't brand new information because as football fans, you can kind of read the lines, when you hear different stories and here and there. And for me, it's quite unusual for Isak to react the way he did. I got the sense that promises were broken, where he was probably told that, if a bid comes in or if there's strong interest from a club, we'll happily facilitate a move for you because we know you've got aspirations. We know you want to play for the best clubs in the world. So we understand your situations. I felt like they had broken a promise there. And that's why he's annoyed, he's peed off, he's unsettled. He doesn't want to train with the team. He's gone out of his way to leave the country and train in Spain for some little period of time. And also reading between the lines as well. If this was a big problem in terms of how he's behaving, why hasn't he been fined? If a player acts in that way, they normally get fined by the club because they've been disruptive, they've been unprofessional, they've been unethical in terms of the way they've carried themselves or how they've, mistreated or disrespected the club. He hasn't been fined. So clearly there has been discussion in the back. Clearly promises have been broken. So for me, the Isak statement is more genuine. And the Newcastle statement, they had to kind of cover their back. Oh, we look out for our players and all that sort of stuff. We're a club with pride. So they're always going to give you that PR narrative. But what I got from that is one, they're calling Isak a liar when I don't think he is. And number two, they still seem to be open to getting a deal done. They just feel like the conditions won't be met, but it could be. We still have 11 days. Liverpool are ready to sanction that 130 million bid. That's the current rumor right now, and I think it will happen next week. So yeah, fingers crossed it does. Uh, moving on, Yoane Wissa. We'll stick to the whole Newcastle situation here. Um, as I mentioned regarding Eze, so with Eze, it looked like he was heading to Tottenham, but unfortunately, they were not able to get the deal over the line, and they even tried to offer Richarlison as part of the deal. It wasn't quite a swap deal, but they were saying, look, if you allow us to sign Eze, we'll give you Richarlison at maybe as a discount rate. I don't know, but that was the discussion earlier this morning. Um, so now Spurs, unfortunately, they've been hijacked in terms of their transfer deal, and they have to go through their shortlist. And it looks like they could be turning to their attention to one player, and that is, of course, Yoane Wissa. Uh, and could he be reunited with his former coach? It's a strong possibility. It's a slim chance, in my opinion, because I think the sort of stance that we're getting from Wissa that it's Newcastle that he wants to join. But with the coach being Thomas Frank, that could be a deciding factor for Wissa, especially if Brentford aren't willing to do business with Newcastle. So let's say it happens. If Wissa ends up joining Tottenham, it could potentially affect the move for Isak, as I don't think Newcastle will want to do business with Liverpool because they missed out on their target. But also, I don't mean to be rude. Newcastle have zero pull right now to sign any level striker. So for me, that's a concern from their point of view. And because of that, they'll probably just want to keep Isak, despite him being annoyed and peed off. They'd happily, try to utilize him into the squad somehow, some way. So in that scenario, for me, that can't happen. Wissa can't join Tottenham because it ruins our deal for Isak. But if I'm being honest with you guys, I don't see him joining Spurs only because, as I mentioned, Wissa has made it very clear he only wants to move to Newcastle. And earlier today, Newcastle placed a bid of £35 million plus 5 million in add-ons that equals to a 40 million deal for Wissa, but unfortunately it was rejected by Brentford. So the big question is, should Newcastle come back with an improved bid? Absolutely. That's their main target right now, so they need to do everything in their power to sign a striker. But I do find it a bit cheeky from Newcastle to place an offer that was below Brentford's valuation. And everyone knows they value the player at £60 million. So surely that's disrespectful or hypocritical from Newcastle um, to do that. And of course, definitely hypocritical from Newcastle fans who have been very loud on social media telling Liverpool to pay up. Well, you do the same thing as well then. Pay up. You can't raise the stakes and say Isak is 150 and complain when Brentford valued their player at a higher price than what you value him at. So their price is 60 million. So you pay up as well. It's as simple as that. For me, Newcastle aren't moving smart right now. They're wasting a lot of time. 11 days left. They have zero strikers at their club right now. They don't just need to get an Isak replacement. They need to sign a striker to replace Callum Wilson as well. So what they need to do is increase that bid, try and get that player over the line because there is interest from other clubs. Maybe he favors a move to Newcastle, but you know, if there's interest from other clubs, you never know. Things can change with a click of a finger. But my verdict on Wissa, I think he will eventually sign for Newcastle. So hopefully that gives Liverpool the pathway to sign Isak. So yeah, let's hope that is how it pans out. But we'll have to wait and see. Let me just go through some of the comments before we move on. Just go ahead, comment here from Mazzy. He said, Ozzy, I agree with you somehow. We will get Isak hopefully this window. But remember, we've got Hugo Ekitike, who is the top baller. 100%. I'm so pleased with us signing Ekitike because he looks like a very special talent. If we don't get Isak, I wouldn't be completely distraught. I'd be a bit annoyed because I feel like he would have just been such a great addition. And I feel like he would have given us that fear factor, X factor, how you want to phrase it. And I think teams would have been worried. for Liverpool. But I still feel like Liverpool have enough quality in the squad to, really have a positive first half of the season, and maybe we can revisit Isak and try and sign him in January. But let's see what happens. We've got Ekitike, so for me, that is a player of good quality, and we've got other players that they can fill in that striker role if required until Isak as a free man and is allowed to join Liverpool in the end. Rajib says, if Newcastle get Wissa, and Liverpool offer them 135 million, we will get Isak because it's going to be extremely hard to get Isak mentally back on track. 100%. I feel like he's in a position where he hates the club. That's what I feel like. But then also the fan base hate the player as well. So to try and you know get those two sort of relationships back on track, it's going to be very difficult, and it's not going to be a long-term solution. It'll probably be a short-term one because Liverpool will be back for him in January. That's the way I see it. If we aren't able to get that deal, but I don't want to keep saying that because I'm very sort of positive that we will get Isak in this window. But yeah, let's just wait and see what happens. I do think Wissa will end up joining Newcastle, and I think Isak will end up joining Liverpool. That's my prediction there. Man said, Ozzy, why does no top striker want to go to Newcastle, bro? It's a great question. I have no idea. It might be that they're not willing to offer big salaries for those players. And unfortunately, that, this window has shown us, player power is a thing. So if a player doesn't get what he wants, he doesn't have to oblige and just agree to terms. They have a stronger stance than the past, I guess. So it might be where, the player that they're going for, they're not able to provide the financial package to get them over the line. But also, I don't mean to be cheeky when I say this. I feel like Newcastle's targets have been players that have been very sought after, and because of that, it's very difficult to try and acquire those players when you've got the likes of bigger teams going in for them now. For example, Ekitike, Newcastle fans have been saying it for the last couple of days that, oh, if you guys didn't sign Ekitike, you'd have got Isak a long time ago. But the thing was, Ekitike was a player on the cards a very long time ago from a Liverpool point of view. Apparently, we made an approach in January to sign him for this summer, and I'm not surprised by that because I first got the sort of the news or the rumor in December that Ekitike was a player that we were looking at. So I've been on Ekitike watch for the last 6 months, maybe more so, 8 months. We're in August now, so since the turn of the year, I've been watching or trying to watch him in action for Frankfurt, and I watched a couple of under 21 games for France where I'll be honest with you, he had a great partnership with Turkey. They look like a formidable combination in that team. So for me, you know, signing a player like Ekitike was always going to be difficult for Newcastle because Liverpool were in the mix and have been, in the mix for quite some time. Sesko, that one, I'll be honest with you, surprised me a little bit. I thought the logical move would have been to go to Newcastle because they are able to offer Champions League football. They're a club on the up. They've got a solid foundation. So I feel like, it would have been a great platform for him to join that team, and he would have taken over Isak's role, and so he would have been the main guy straight away. But United, I guess Heritage took over, and not only that, a big chunk of money, of course, was offered, and that's what swayed his decision to join Manchester United instead of Newcastle. So for me, it's more of a financial thing in terms of why they couldn't get a top striker. But there are other strikers out there that might not be in that top category, but can still improve this Newcastle team. I just don't feel like they've conducted themselves really well. They've not, made the move at the right time because we're running out of time right now. You've got 11 days left, so who knows in terms of what type of striker they want. And it's not just one striker; they need two strikers as well. So yeah, let's see what ends up happening for Newcastle. But whatever happens, all I care about is Isak joining Liverpool. Rajib says, "Do you think Chiesa will play a big role this season?" I think he will. I think he'll be one of those players that we can rely on, hopefully. If he stays fit, that's a huge plus. And number two, because he's versatile, he can play on the left, and the right, and can play up top as well. He gives us that wealth of experience, but also he's a finisher as well. He's a great technical player. So I can see him coming off the bench and being an impact sub whether he's assisting other players or if he's scoring goals like he did against Bournemouth last week. That's the kind of impact I'm expecting from him. So his role is not going to be more of a starter. I think he's going to be an impact player. That's what I see. Well, that's what I envision Chiesa to have for us next season. And this season, and I'm looking forward to it. I feel like he's going to be a very important player for Liverpool. Moving on, Rodrigo. Now, Indy has been very successful with his breaking news this summer. Tweeted earlier on today, and he suggested that Rodrigo's agents are traveling to London this evening, and the agent has meetings scheduled with Arsenal and Liverpool to see what options can be offered for their client. Um, and just to point out, this is not a club to club discussion. This is the agent, requesting these meetings with um, figures from Arsenal and Liverpool, and that's the kind of notion, or that's the kind of update we're getting right now. So my thoughts on that, I don't believe it. If I'm being honest with you, um, the Arsenal one that's out of the water because they're sending Eze now, so Eze is their main signing. Man City were in the mix. Do they sign him? It's a possibility. If I'm being honest with you, Liverpool 50-50. I'm not entirely sure that we will go for him, but he is an interesting profile. I highly doubt we'd get Isak and Rodrigo. That would just be beyond expectations, in my opinion. But I don't know. If Isak wasn't to come through, then I would rather go for Barcola. That's the guy I want. If it was Rodrigo, I wouldn't be overly excited, if I'm being honest with you, because I don't feel like he adds something different to our team, whereas Isak or Barcola would, in my opinion. So I don't think there's any truth to Rodrigo moving to Arsenal or Liverpool. I don't. I just think that's just paper talk. So yeah, I don't think there's any truth to that at all. Um, Harvey Elliott. So the latest we're hearing right now is that, of course, Red Bull Leipzig have identified Harvey Elliott as their top target to replace Xavi Simons, who is set to move to Chelsea after the Bundesliga opener against Bayern Munich. Leipzig have apparently agreed personal terms with Harvey Elliott, and Liverpool are keen to let him go with a suitable offer. So for me, this sounds like it's a positive pathway for Elliott to move over to Red Bull Leipzig. I think the delay has been because the Xavi Simons deal hasn't been concluded. So once that's made official, I think this will escalate. And I think Elliott might be on the verge of joining Red Bull Leipzig. I thought Tottenham would have been in the mix, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Or you never know now because Eze would have been their prime target, but they might have to look at Elliott as a potential number 10 option. Uh, but to be fair with Red Bull Leipzig, they have shown the most interest. They've been very sort of aggressive in terms of trying to get that deal over the line. So I think it's just a waiting game for them. They definitely have the finances. They're selling Simons, but they're also generating a lot of funds from the Sesko deal. So in terms of meeting our valuation, which is probably around 40 to 50 million pounds, I think it will happen. Uh, in some, if I was to make a prediction, I think it will happen at some point end of this week. I think we'll get some sort of update with Elliot, agreeing a move to go over to Red Bull Leipzig, and then he'll be unveiled at some point next week. That would be my prediction there. So yeah, let's see what happens. I do expect Elliot to leave Liverpool by the end of this window. And the final rumor today is Ibu Konate and no real who's developments here. What we're hearing right now is that Liverpool continue to insist to Real Madrid that they will not sell Ibrahim Konate for anything less than 50 million euros, which in pounds is about 45 million pounds. So my thoughts on that, I mentioned this yesterday. I wouldn't even sell him at 45. I think it's just too late to sell him now. At the beginning of the window, if we got that indication that Konate doesn't want to sign a new contract, sell him then. Now it's too late. We've just over a week to go. We can't, sell Konate and get Gay plus get another player because we'll need to get another defender. Two defenders plus Isak plus, my pipeline dream of having another attacker. Impossible. So that's not going to happen. Right now, I want it to be a bit more stability in our squad now, especially in our defense where we've looked shaky. Let's be honest with you. So making too many wholesale changes in that department makes zero sense. I'd rather keep Konate for another season. And look, if he goes out on a free, so be it. It is what it is. But I feel like, with us selling £45 million, we're not going to find an adequate replacement right away. So why not, use Konate this season where he can help us win trophies, and hopefully with us winning some silverware, that 45 million will be chump change in the end, because we would have made so much finances from other, trophies and winning or progressing in certain competitions that it would have been paid off in the end. So for me, I'd rather have him than sell him at this stage. So that's my thoughts. Probably early in the window, I would have said sell him if he doesn't want to sign. The rumor is that he's going to be offered double his salary, which is around 150k per week. But I think he's holding out for more, because you've got the likes of Saliba, who's around the same age group as him, and probably at the right sort of equal stage of their careers right now. He's earning about 200, so I think he wants close to that range. So whether he gets that or not remains to be seen. But I really hope he stays. He's a player that I really like. I know he had an awful performance against Bournemouth the other day, but he's human after all. He is entitled to have a stinker here and there. So I would like Konate to stay, and I really hope he signs a contract sooner rather than later, because I don't want it to be another Trent situation where we're talking about him every week and we don't know if he's going or not. So hopefully we get some sort of clarification in the coming weeks regarding Konate's future at the club. That's the final rumor. I'm just going to read the last few comments and we will then close the show. Mazzy says, Aussie, if we get Isak and Gade, then what would you give our transfer business? 10 out of 10? I would. I would give it 10 out of 10. Of course, I would love another winger added to that mix, which would literally surpass my ranking to 15 out of 10. But I think for what we need right now, Gahey and Isak tick all the boxes. For me, it would be a 10 out of 10 window for sure. Rajib says, Elliot is a good player. If we sell him, how much would we get for him? I think we'll get in the region of around 40 to 50 million pounds. Normally, that seems a bit high for a team like, you know, Red Bull Leipzig, who aren't renowned to spend too much on certain players, but because they've got a lot of money coming through from the Sesko deal as well as the Xavi Simons deal, I think 40 to 50 million is an adequate valuation of the player, and I think that is what we'll end up getting for him. So yeah, 40 to 50 million pounds is the valuation I think Liverpool will get. Mazzy says, Ozzy, do you think Ben will cook for Bournemouth, and will we use the buyback clause in the future? I think he'll do really well there. Whether Liverpool activate that buyback clause remains to be seen. I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't think he'll reach the heights to play for a top club like Liverpool. I think he's got good ability. He's very quick, has decent end product, but I feel like that's something he needs to continue in order to evolve. And let's see how well he does at Bournemouth. But I think the Bournemouth move is the right move for him. He'll play under a coach whose philosophy is, really, really positive, plays attacking football. They're relentless in the way they set up and the way they play. So it's a great team to join. And in terms of from a business point of view, 25 million, it suits Liverpool. We can use that in our squad. And I think Bournemouth have probably signed a good player that could be a future star for them. So yeah, I think he'll do well at Bournemouth. I don't think we'll activate that buyback clause, but that's just the kind of vision I have right now. Who knows if he really hits the heights that we probably imagine that he would one day, then it could be a discussion. But right now, I don't think that is the case. Uh, and that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to AR. Thank you to Chibuke. Thank you to Philip. Thank you to Nick. Thank you to Mazzy. Thank you to Stuart. And thank you to Rajib for your comments. Appreciate your engagement as always, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. In terms of upcoming shows, I will be doing a match preview tomorrow. I know it's a Monday fixture, but I like to do my match previews on a Thursday. So the match preview, of course, the big game, not just for us, I think for the whole Premier League, is Newcastle versus Liverpool. I hope the players have some sort of protection on because it's going to be a very fiery encounter. I'll be doing a match preview tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be joined by a couple guests as well. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. The show should begin around 11 p.m. UK time. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you know what time we start our stream. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.